I have many fond memories of my grandmother, and one of my favorites is sitting snuggled up next to her on the couch as she read the Bible. I loved listening to her voice and watching her eyes twinkle as she read aloud the verses. And one of her favorites was Romans 10:9. If you confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. After she would say, "It doesn't get much simpler than that," the gospel in a nutshell. Hello, this is Lisa Moore from the Christian Kitchen Table with this week's Sip of the Word. I'm sure it would surprise her to know that as easy as she found Paul's words, others would find just as troubling. Why? All because of the word "and." In Ephesians 2:8-9, Paul tells us, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not as a result of works, so that no man may boast." The apostle makes it clear that there are no works we could ever do to earn salvation. It's a gift that God so graciously offers to all who believe and receive Messiah Jesus as their Savior. Yet here in Romans, Paul says that we must believe and confess that Jesus is Lord. But how can that be? Doesn't making confession mandatory fall in the category of works? Is Paul adding conditions the Lord never intended? The truth is, Paul was never saying that confession was a requirement to be saved. Instead, he meant confession to be evidence of being saved. When Paul wrote his letter to the Romans, it was a tumultuous time for Christians. It was one thing to be a follower of Jesus or confess him as Savior behind closed doors, but to confess him as your Savior publicly meant certain persecution and possibly death. Paul himself was beaten, imprisoned, and eventually beheaded for his faith. He knew full well the weight of a public confession. He also knew that those who were truly saved would not only believe it in their hearts, but confess it with their mouths for the world to hear, no matter the consequences. Sadly, the times we live in are not that different than the times of the early church. Every day, Christians around the world are being persecuted and killed for their faith. And no follower of Jesus is exempt, yet we are called to confess just the same. After all, how can we walk in obedience to God, spreading the gospel throughout the land without confessing Jesus as our Savior? And although we may experience mistreatment or worse, we can find comfort knowing, as Paul did, that the sufferings of this time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Romans 8:18. And better yet, when we are faithful in our confession of Jesus as Lord, he promises, "Every one who confesses me before men, I will also confess him before my Father who is in heaven." Matthew 10:34. This is Lisa Moore from the Christian Kitchen Table saying, "The grass may wither and the flower may fade, but the word of our God will stand forever."